All right, everybody, we got Branson Bowen here. I want to call him the mastodon of Florida commercial real estate is what I'm going to go with. But welcome to the show. Glad to have you on No BS Wealth, and we're going to talk a lot about today is commercial real estate and some philanthropy part of it as well. So why don't you give everyone a little background of who you are, your business, and what really drives you every day?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man. It truly is an honor. I've got a podcast myself, so I understand having creating value with each other. So it's a great opportunity. First off, I'm a partner at PBC Construction. We're a commercial general contractor with a heavy design build vertical. We're here in Central Florida, so Orlando. We kind of stay in the Central Florida area. Then also, I'm the founder of Contractors, Closers, and Connections Orlando. We are a nonprofit that's centralized around commercial real estate, construction executives, networking, creating business opportunities, and then we have a philanthropy aspect as well. And so, what we do is we basically connect the industry, host events that kind of bring everybody together. Our motto is make business personal again. So we really are trying to kind of diversify with what we're doing, having more lively events, really being intentional about the networking aspect and getting people to know each other in the industry because they're working together and getting familiar with what they're doing. So with that, our events are centered around grassroots nonprofits here in the community. We have an industry full of folks who really want to help people and want to just make an impact. Some of them don't know who to give to or who to help. And so we just basically act as a vehicle for those organizations. We donate our proceeds for all of our events to those organizations, but we also kind of act as an arm's length relationship to them. So we, introduce them to some of their needs. We had one organization we introduced to a contractor that they needed a new roof on their building. We try to help, introduce them to volunteers and give people just a really good feel of what those organizations are doing here in town and what their immediate needs are. And then we have another twofold to that where we actually connect the universities and some of the students graduating there from the construction, real estate, engineering, or architectural trades to connect them to opportunities post graduation.
All right, so that's a lot, right? I mean, ultimately, you got the business side, and then you got that side. Why take on the nonprofit side? Why go that route at all? When I'm sure you're busy every day anyway. But what really drove you to be involved more?
Yeah, so just being in the industry, my career path has kind of been backwards. I started in investment sales, then transitioned into a commercial real estate broker where I was doing acquisitions, site acquisitions, leasing, and owner's representation. And then now on the construction side, with a heavy design build element, we've kind of get a piece of the whole deal. We help clients through site selection and their acquisition process, and then we go through design, budgeting, and actual construction, and then even help them on the finance side as well. And so through the career, I've noticed that there are missing pieces in some of the professionals. Some of the professionals don't know exactly what they do, what each other does, right? And so I think overall, seeing that and seeing the missing components really, in a way, disturbed me because, at the end of the day, everybody in the industry is representing a client. And, I really felt that it was a disservice to the client if there wasn't a cohesiveness through all of the professionals. And so, through that and just my career path, I was just like, there's got to be a way and to connect the industry. And so, there's other organizations, there's NAIOP, ABC, BOMA, different things like that that really focus on the networking component. But what we've tried to do is not pigeonhole just to architects or just to engineers or just to brokers. We really try to bring in everyone in the industry that's going to be representing that client, not only to get them on the same page, but making sure that they're choosing the right team to best service that client. And so that was a big need I felt that was in the industry. We launched right in the middle of COVID. People were real hesitant to get out. Organizations really stopped doing in-person events. Luckily, I found a venue that was just like, yeah, you guys come on. And so I told everybody, look, you're all grown adults. You come at your own risk and network and have a good time. And so, they did, and we're going on 2 years now, and so we've seen tremendous success. And then, the backbone of our organization is really the community. So we all are building great commercial things, buildings and retail shops and restaurants here in Orlando. But I felt like it was important to make sure that we keep that community component to our organization. And so, we really focus on the grassroots organizations just because they're typically underfunded. A lot of those people really have a heart and need to want to help, but they really don't understand business. They don't understand connections and leveraging those to be able to further their mission. And so, through that partnership of giving a almost threefold, we call it our four pillars. And so it's networking, it's the community aspect, it's, like business minded. So we bring in like speakers for every event that's topic driven. And then we really focus on building those relationships. And so yeah, it was just a need that was needed in the industry, and we just kind of went in full fledged and have seen tremendous success. I think year to date we've raised over 100 grand for nonprofits here in Orlando.
Wow, that's not too shabby actually.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you think about it, I've been a part of a lot of nonprofits and boards and whatnot, and raising money is what everyone thinks of, but it's really what are you doing for the community, and what
sure.
you're doing is above and beyond one, but two, what it's doing is it's creating more of a sense of community. We all
Yeah,
know this, that when you have a sense of community, something goes wrong, you need help others. That's what being an American's about, right? That's truly what coming together does. And, you're doing it from a scale that I've never heard of really, on the commercial
yeah,
side, right? Usually it's their little tight knit group and
yeah.
that's it. It's not helping others. It's just how much, money can we make? And I applaud you
Right,
for that as well.
right. I appreciate that, and we felt like it was a need to go further than just giving that check. Right, anybody can write a check and kind of think that they helped. And so we really try to like when we're bringing in our community from the industry, we really treat these nonprofits as part of our community. So we do tours, we do CSR events where we're actually getting our hands dirty and volunteering. We did a Make-A-Wish one last year where we went to their little house thing, and they have a Make-A-Wish village where some of these children stay with their families. A lot of them are terminally ill, and we're really like they're giving them the Disney experience. And so we got the opportunity to do that here in October. I think we're doing a CSR where we're actually getting in and building farms or like vegetable gardens for the community. So these lower end communities can actually come and have fresh vegetables and fruit and things like that without having to go to the store and get all the processed stuff. And so we really try to bring that in because we are community based. We are about relationships, and so it's very important.
Well, hell, I applaud the hell out of you for that.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
but so now on the business front, right?
Sure.
So you dabble a little bit in construction, a little bit of here and there, right? Um, Tell me about the market. Talk about the market down there, what you guys are seeing, and why you're staying only. I mean, obviously, from the community perspective, you're staying local, but why is that the heart of what you do? Why is it such a good market down there?
So, Orlando has, in the past couple of years, especially with our economic issues across the country, I would say Florida, Florida has been very stable. There's a lot of people moving here. DeSantis has done a great job of making sure that it's a eco business centered atmosphere. One of the things, I mean, people are moving here, which means retail is great. When you've got, tourism and people moving, retail is great, multifamily is great. But then your healthcare markets, we do a lot of healthcare stuff. Healthcare is great. We do a ton of owner occupied type of projects, and I think that's one of our niches, just simply because we have the ability to walk the client from start to finish, and some of them aren't familiar with the development process. And my background and what I kind of focused on was development and learning and teaching them how to, from their site acquisitions, what's their exit, what's their long term plan. So we really try to do that. There's a lot of people that just want to build, and that's just not who we are because we're a smaller GC. I mean, we've started 15 years ago, and we have just kind of grown organically. But the biggest thing is relationships. We don't have a ton of work with developers. In today's market, development is starting to slow down just because your interest rates are so high. that the deal doesn't make sense. It can't paper. You have build to suit projects where, the developer is going to deliver turnkey to the tenant, and some of them still aren't penciling out. Even though the deal is all wrapped up, just with your financing fees, unless you can bring on extra private capital to fund the deal, sometimes it doesn't make sense. So, in that owner occupied space, it's just been very prosperous for us.
Yeah. Where do you think it goes? So yes, development's going to slow down. Interest rates are where they're at. Eventually they'll level out, in my opinion, at some point. But over the next, we'll have to get through the next presidential election before really things start to move. What's your opinion where things go with that? What does someone who only does development do? What could an investor on the outside be looking for in regards to that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly depends on what market you're in, right? You've got to look at where the people are going and where they're at. I think that, if you can strategically place yourself in markets that are growing, I mean, there's always going to be a need, right? People are always going to eat. People are always going to need a place to live. People always are going to need to see the doctor. I think overall spending, like extra spending has been down. I think Target announced that, I think this quarter, like lost like $200 million from last quarter. And so you're going to see consumer spending slow down, which is, it's a function of inflation and interest rates. But I think if you're a developer, if you're an investor, you've got to follow where the people are, because as long as there's people, there's going to be a need for something. And then you follow your bigger market. So your high profitable markets, as far as margins go, is going to be your industrial market, your healthcare market, and then I would say multifamily. Because people are going to always have to have a place to live. On the industrial side, the rents for your industrial user are still very low. So there's an ability to continue to raise rents to keep up with your margins and your return if you're a developer looking in the industrial space. But again, you've got to have people. So if you're in a market where people are leaving, I would say choose a new
Right.
market.
Right. Absolutely. So with that being said, would you think is give me your opinion on office space, right? Everyone, that's the hottest topic right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Multifamily obviously is always going to be there. Industrial has been hotter as well, but like office is the topic. What's going to happen? Give us your opinion on where you think that goes. Now, every market's different, so you only can speak for your own. But where do you believe office goes and
Yeah.
what the future holds?
I think office is going to have to do with the use. We're building a 50,000 square foot office building right now. I've got a 40,000 square foot office building under construct or under development right now. It's going to depend, but those are owner occupied. Those are people who need to occupy their office. I think if you have a high tech use where people can work very remotely, I think this remote work, I think people are seeing some of the negative things that are happening. I think the cohesion of the people in the workplace, I think, making sure that people are actually working. I think there's an ability for people to work from home. And I think people enjoy working from home. You get to be home with your family, you don't have to travel. I think when you don't travel, you can spend more on other things rather than, gas. And maybe if you're if you have a spousal household, you maybe only need one car. You don't need two cars. I think office is ripe for change, but it's going to be solely dependent on the businesses and how they restructure their business model and how they really figure out how to engage their employees. Some markets are going to not have office. I mean, you look at New York City for once. I think their vacancy rate is like 30-40%, which is astronomical. But some of those people those companies have to revitalize their office space and what happens in the office. If it's just boring cubicles, they're going to figure out how to get rid of their overhead and use it elsewhere.
Yeah. A lot of what I've seen in things that are happening, even locally, but around, is everyone's looking at, okay, how do we redevelop office? How do we create multi-use? Do we go to retail? I won't speak through it because I'm not the expert, but how tough is it to take an office building and flip it into retail? Mainly because, you have offices on the outside, there's nothing in the middle. What really is the toughest part of going from an office to maybe mixed use or retail that isn't as easy as just taking down a wall?
Yeah, that's been a hot topic, and from the brokerage side, I've heard a lot of brokers like, "Hey, we have this office building, we can turn it into apartments." And it's just not that simple. First thing you have is your use, just your zoning, right? So you've got to get a complete zoning change, and that's not an easy process. If you talk about an office building that's been there for 30 years, changing it to multifamily is not easy. Secondly, okay, say you get your zoning approved. Well, next you got parking, right? So a lot of these office buildings have garage parking. Your parking ratios for office is usually one spot for every 300 square feet, maybe a little less or more. um, you're going to have more parking. The next thing is going to be all of your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, construction costs and constraints. You look at a 10,000 square foot office building, they might have plumbing for, they might have four bathrooms, right? Maybe three. When you turn that to apartment, you got to have a restroom, a sink for the kitchen, a bath, a tub in every unit. Now you can tie in, but you can't physically be able to handle that infrastructure. And then you look at the mechanical side. You've got a lot of these big office buildings have chillers on the roof. How are you going to have a new unit for every existing, space or new space? So it is a lot difficult, more difficult than people think. I'm not saying that it can't be done. There are many people that are doing it, but it is a challenge, and I would say it's a multi-year process and redoing that.
Yeah, which sounds like an absolutely nightmare. Let alone, all the logistics and the cost of construction right now too.
Yeah,
You throw on top of that, you're getting a construction loan, which is high rates. I mean, it just seems like an
right.
absolute nightmare. I mean, probably easier to go and throw in retail somewhere than it is to, you know,
Sure.
turn around and put in some multifam in there. But that, yeah, I'm glad I'm not in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them out there right now just
Yeah.
going, what in the hell? Like locally, Wells Fargo's getting rid of a few 100,000 square feet of office.
Yeah.
One they just built. Like what do you do with it? Well, we sell it. Hopefully someone else can take it. Well, what are they going to do with it? Probably not much.
Right.
And just hope that this whole thing comes around. I don't think we're going to go from everyone was in the office to cubicles to office to, we had COVID and we're now, I think it's going to be a hybrid. I think
Yeah.
businesses have to be able to take on both and be okay with it, right? There's a lot of roles in a lot of companies that you physically do not need to be in the office.
Yeah.
Now I get the culture and all of that, but you got to have then space for that culture to grow too. You can't just have cubicle land.
Right.
That's people are over that. They're over
Right.
cubicle land.
Right.
Are we getting back to more offices? Probably, but we're also getting back to just mixed use space where, hey, yeah, I can go hang out with them, whether it's a garden, whether it's, a bar top, whether it's putt putt, whatever the hell it is, that's what they're going to gravitate more
Right.
towards. Luckily, a lot of these office spaces have the space. It's just now, will that business transition? Yeah,
Sure.
that's
And I
interesting.
think, going to that hybrid model, I think it's a great model. I mean, we've used it before. I think the biggest challenge is making sure that the business and the executives in the business have the accountability, the processes
Mhm.
and procedures in place to make sure that their employees are doing what they need to be doing. And I think that's the biggest challenge. I think oftentimes, these companies are like, oh, well, it's not working, so everybody needs to come in back to office. Well, that's not the solution. People want to
Right.
work from home and they can, but you've got to create that business model around that in order for it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't just
Yeah.
have them have to log in from 9 to 5
Yeah,
and that's
right,
it, right?
right.
Like there's give and take. I'm a huge proponent of if you get your shit done, you're done. Like there's no need
Absolutely.
to stick around and hang out. Like if you got your work done for the day, peace out. Or if you have where you work for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, you still get your shit done. I don't care. Just get your
Right.
work done. And I just don't believe a lot of these companies have that mindset. And that could be because we're younger. It's our generation. I don't hell if I know, but we're going to start to see that
Yeah,
shift pretty crazily here soon.
absolutely.
Um, what's next? What's the big thing for you? Obviously, owner occupied buildings are great. What do you look for in the cycle and what's coming down the road? Do you research things? Who do you talk to? Like what happens in your brain to be ahead of whatever curve, or do you look to be ahead of the curve?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good question. So, for me, it's about surrounding myself with the right people. I'm always a big proponent of don't be the smartest guy in the room. If you are, you're probably in the wrong room. I have a ton of great mentors that really have been able to pour into me and that are, 10, 20, 30 years ahead of me. And they're strategic mentors, right? They're not just a buddy that I can, grab some beers with. I mean, some of these are real estate developers, private equity, construction companies that have got to 200 million. I got one guy that they're a 1.2 billion dollar company. So they've been through a bunch of cycles and they understand what's happening. Your private equity and your finance guys, they've got their ear to the ground with everything. So being really close to them is very important. Um, in today's time, it's just kind of just flowing with the market. Again, it's tough to say. We're in Florida. It's a lot different than most of the country. So we're just kind of enjoying while you can, stack some cash while you
Right.
can, and hopefully nothing happens. And if it does, then hopefully we're prepared. But again, it's you staying in your sector to where you can pivot if you need to. That's one of the benefits that we have as a company is we're not very big, so we don't have a ton of overhead that if something happens, I mean, I could float these guys for 2 years if I have to.
Right.
Um, so you just got to be very agile in times like this, and you can't get over your skis too quickly.
Yeah, I love that. I love that philosophy. That is very, very important for twofold. One, being able to be flexible. I really don't care how big your company is. You have to have a flexibility mindset at
Yeah,
some point, somewhere, a division, a department here or
no,
there.
no doubt.
You have to be able to, and that's why businesses fail because they can't or they don't want to. The other part is the mentorship. I don't know how vital and important that is. Doesn't matter what your industry is to go get a mentor, go find
Yeah,
them. They're out there. They might not be local. Okay. I know there's not that many here in Iowa. We're smaller. Orlando's a little bigger, right? But they're out there across the country, and having a mentor and someone to just help that allows you not to make those bigger mistakes, in my opinion.
absolutely.
You still need to do little mistakes. You still need to fail on your own.
No, sure.
But it's just those, catastrophic ones that we want to avoid as much as
Yeah.
possible. So talk through being, a young business owner and kind of that process of getting a business going and developing it and the stresses of all of that. Talk us through, how you overcome that, how you achieve that, and still stay, relatively positive every day. I know it's impossible to do every day, but talk us through your mindset with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you got to start, right? So, as any entrepreneur, I mean, there's a ton of people, especially in our generation, that they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to be business owners, but they don't. I think it's over, especially with social media, it is over centralized of how lavish business is. And that's not what business is. That's
Right.
a highlight reel. And if you really do your due diligence, some of these people rented that Lamborghini that they
Yeah.
that they posted pictures with. So, for me, one, I try to make sure that if I'm talking to anyone or trying to give advice, that it's very candid conversation, right? And what the reality of business is. Business is nothing without people. So you've got to have the right people in place. You've got to put together the right team. With PBC, we have a great team who's really on the ship with us moving forward. They understand what 5 years from now looks like, what 10 years looks like from now. With my nonprofit, I've got a great team who fundamentally keep the organization running, and they also understand the mission. They're all bought in. So I think that's very important when you're growing. You've got to find, well, I mean, one, you got to start, right?
Right.
You got to have customers because if you don't have customers, you just got an idea.
Great idea. Just fantastic idea.
There's a plethora of ideas out there,
Yeah.
right? So you got to be able to do those two things, and the next thing is to be able to execute, and you can't execute without people. Some trades, some professions, you can do things by yourself, and that's fine. But the reality is, you do need people in some scenario. You might need a bank, you might need a mentor, you might need a partner, you might need a tradesman, whatever it is, you need people. So finding the right people is very essential, and then treating those people right. Making sure that you're keeping a pulse not only on the culture but on the business, right? Your finances, your cash flow, what your overhead projections are looking like, what your pipeline looks like, and future sales. not being overly aggressive, but you've got to take risks too, not being too conservative. So, I think as far as just growing, you got to understand that there's going to be failures. Gary Vee says, fail fast, right? Just be the first one to fail and then you can learn. And I think that's okay. Failure is not failure if you learn from it. Failure is failure if you don't learn from it and you do it again. A lot of great people talk about that. So I think those are kind of just the core elements of how, we're looking and what I look for in starting and growing a business.
I also I always steal this line from the Navy SEALs. Embrace the suck. If you're a
Yeah.
business owner, it sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
be real. You said it's not all glorious. It's not, like, most of the time. We really feel like an iceberg, right? We're smiles and dealing with stuff on the top side, but below there is a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Whether it's not sleeping because your brain's running 100 miles an hour, whether it's time away from family, there's so much. And
Right.
that's not to say, I'm not trying to scare people away. Get started, but embrace the suck. Embrace it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun, painful ride, but you have to be able to learn and be flexible in order to be successful. And
Right.
then to what you said, have a team, whatever
Right.
that looks like. Delegate away, or you have to, because you cannot do this whole thing by yourself.
I think one of the things is there are people out there that are, and I had to overcome this as well, that like you've got to have all your ducks in a row. Everything's got to be perfect before you start. And what I've learned through many of years and decades of mentors and their experience, it don't work like that.
Right?
Most of, I mean, I've had mentors who've grown $1 million company and then $1 billion company. And both of them are, what I've noticed for the most part, fly by the seat of their pants and figure it out as they go.
Yep.
And I think that's just what you just really, as a business owner and entrepreneur, you've got to understand that you can't, it's analysis paralysis, right? So you've got so many decisions, you got to get this lined up. And then what happens is you never do it because you over commit or you freak out and get all, worked up, that you don't end up doing it. You don't end up jumping in the deep end. You just got to jump in and figure it out as you go, to be honest.
You really do. I saw this quote, and I'll paraphrase it a little bit from Twitter yesterday. And it ultimately, what it was talking about was, one, just do it, figure shit out for yourself, right? Just figure shit out. You'll be all right. And then ultimately, the other thing is, for those in more of a service industry, your clients don't think about this thing as often as you do, right? We live it every day. We're thinking about them, what we can do. They don't. It doesn't cross their mind that often. And so understand that too, right? Like, they're not thinking about it every second of the day. Therefore, it's not that big of a deal. For us, it's life or death, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
If I make this up, it's over, right? That's screwed.
Yeah.
It's not that way. Like, let's calm down a little bit. People are people, and they're not recognizing what you're recognizing. So I thought that was a really cool little quote there.
Yeah, no, it is true. And communication is important too. We deal with a ton of clients, and look, construction is not pretty by any means. And oftentimes the outside world and even the clients don't really see what all the chaos that's going on. But it is important to communicate with what you can and what you should. I mean, not enough to where it freaks everybody out, but but enough to make sure that everybody's on the same page. They understand everybody's doing the best that they can. They're moving as quickly as they can, especially in today's industry where construction is fast, right? I mean, the industry is moving fast. I don't know any sub GC architect, any consultant in this industry that is not just completely bogged down. And I tell people all the time, if you find someone then like that's not bogged down and they got the time, they probably ain't that good.
Right. Yep. Red flag. You might want to move on.
Yeah. So,
yeah. I mean, that's completely it. We're people. People are people. There's real shit goes on, right? And I think if we all slow down a little bit and recognize that, and that comes all the way for full circle, is community, like that sense of community. I think we're losing that a lot in America because of the divides of name it out there.
Yeah.
But really, it comes down to, we are one community and we're here for each other and we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Yes, there's shitty people out there. There always will be. But the greater good of us are just trying to help and get things done and survive ourselves. And when everyone slows down to think about that, it really comes together very well. And that's when you have that community. That's when you have a business that's successful. and everyone doesn't have that stress and that tense of like, oh no, if I make one wrong step, they're going to blow me up on social media or they're going to fire me. Like it's not that serious. Let's just breathe a little bit and enjoy life.
Yeah, I think that's key. Like you said, if everyone could understand, majority of people are doing the best that they know how to do. And that may not be perfect and that might not meet, my expectation or your expectation, but that's all that they know how to do. And so I think it's just important, you work with people, you communicate with them, let them know what the expectation. If they don't know how to physically or mentally meet your expectation, you've got to teach them, you've got to train them, you've got to be able to get them there. And then, on the client side, like just understanding, hey, I want this, I want to build this building just as bad as you do. I'm not trying to screw you. Like we will do whatever that we can, but oftentimes you get that, or you're just trying to screw me. This costs too much. It's like, this is what it costs. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. Have you seen around? This is what it costs. Ask anybody. Like I can't change that. I can't change that part. Yeah. We get that a lot with like the market, right? What's going on with our economy and the stock market and all that. And it's like at some point it is what it is, right? Luckily for us in the stock market, I know it always goes up eventually, right? Oh, you look at the 30-year, 20-year, whatever, it always trends up. That's great. We need to have times that go down.
Yeah.
The question is, that a lot of us in our industry, and we see it on Twitter all the time, is, well, what are you doing for me now when the market's doing this? And it's like, long-term, bud, here. We day-to-day is not going to do it. Don't look at your stuff every day. Please don't. Right. That's not going to help. That'd be like,
matter of fact, change your password.
Change your password. Lose it. I don't care. Get yourself locked out. I mean, it's the same as like if someone to the work site for you every day, you're not going to see the progress in all of that. You're going to see the nitty-gritty and the shit a lot. Mistakes. You're going to see all of those things. Don't check it every day. Don't go by the construction site every day. Like give it time.
I tell clients that want to do that, like, why don't you just build it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You know what? Here, have fun. Knock yourself out. We're the same way. Like if you want to deal with it trading every day, go ahead. Like I'm not doing that. This is a long-term thing, just like anything else.
Yeah.
Breathe a little bit and everyone will be fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final thoughts, comments, things you want to put out to everyone as we get through this first episode with you and highlight all the great things you're doing as well down there in Orlando? Is there anything else you wanted to leave with?
No, man, I think I appreciate you having me on. It's always good chatting with like-minded individuals. You and I spoke briefly. My biggest mission is to make an impact on this world. And specifically the industry. I think the industry is needing, and look, you can look at the commercial real estate and construction industry. You can look at the finance industry, just people who are keeping this economy going. I feel that oftentimes we can get very bogged down with the work. You got, especially in the construction industry, you got a lot of kids graduating in college that they don't want to get into construction. They want to be white collar finance and marketing and all this other stuff. But you got to have construction. Construction is one of the oldest industries in the world, and it keeps the economy going. So, I just want to empower individuals and entrepreneurs and people who want to start businesses, regardless of what it is, because that really does drive not only our economy, the community, and it helps build and impact each other. And I just really believe that that's what we need long term, and that's what we need as a society to really get through some of these times that we're currently dealing with.
Absolutely. I mean, I mic drop, game over, right? You did it on that one. Why don't you tell everyone about your podcast, where they can reach you? Obviously, I would assume everywhere, but talk about your podcast a little bit so that people can follow you, and then we'll make sure to light you up that way too.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate it. So we do have a podcast. It's kind of an arm's length relationship with our nonprofit. The podcast is called Beyond the Blueprint. We have a website. It's beyondtheblueprintpodcast.com. All we're doing is we're sitting down with some of these commercial real estate, construction, architectural engineering individuals and development individuals that have made a massive impact in the industry. And I'm just kind of learning about them and getting their voice out to the community, with their origin stories, their success stories, lessons that they learn, just to, again, kind of act as another voice for them and really announce it out to not only the community but the world. You know, we're on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So it's been a phenomenal impact. I think we just launched yesterday our 11th episode. I mean, and people are I mean, I get phone calls almost once a week, twice a week. Hey man, I just listened to your stuff on the way home. And it's great because, you know, a lot of these individuals, they don't get a chance. When you talk about a business owner who's got a $200 million company and he's, you know, been doing it for 20 years, he's not at the networking event.
No, no,
you
he
know,
ain't. Nope, nope, sure ain't.
you know, and so we just really want to you know, provide that opportunity to a bigger crowd. As far as reach me, man, you'd be surprised. I'm only on LinkedIn. So I don't have any other social medias. It's just LinkedIn, and that is on. I'm very active on LinkedIn. But that's going to be the best way to reach me. If anybody wants to connect with me, or the company, if you've got projects here, or you feel a need to support our organization or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me. It's just my name, and that's about it.
There you go. So hit him up. And if you have questions or contact me, I'll patch you through as well. I appreciate you, appreciate your time and everything that you're doing for your community, but also leaving a legacy for this industry.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been great.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.